Either we heal as a team, or we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is January 8th, 2012. The new year is already moving quickly. This is the Sunday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. I'm not wasting any more time. I want to get to my guest because I only have her on for an hour today, and I want to give her as much of the spotlight as possible. The reason I am bringing her on today is because I'm quite impressed with her stance on things and the fact that she's got, I know she's a female, but she's got a set of balls that wouldn't fit in a dump truck, okay? She's running for Congress, and she actually knows what's going on, and she's not afraid to speak her mind, and she's a very, 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 very smart young lady. So I'd like to introduce you guys to her. You've heard her on Joseph's show before, but I'm pleased to bring her on my show for the first time. Let's welcome Tisha Casida. Tisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Popeye. Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it. I
think it's awesome that a young woman such as yourself is emboldened to stand up and do something. And, you know, it gives me hope that the younger generations, you know, are willing to stand up and do something. I'm glad there's still young people that aren't brainwashed by, you know, the school system and everything else. So it's good to see young people such as yourself willing to get involved in politics, too, because this is a messy game. Nobody wants to get involved in politics at all.
If we don't do it, who will? And we'll be left living in tyranny. I think our country is quickly moving to a place where we're not able to speak freely or exercise any of the rights that so many people have already died for. And I do think that there's a whole new generation of freedom fighters that are interested in standing up for the right thing, which is leaving people alone to do their own thing and not having the federal government involved in every aspect of our lives, and allow us to create prosperity and to create peace. And that's kind of our human walk here on this planet. So I think there's a lot of hope. I don't think that a lot of the positive things get the type of press and media that we would like, but that's up to us to change. And you can't complain about it if you're not willing to do something about it. So as a good friend of mine says, put up or shut up.
Well, I'm inspired by the fact that, again, you're willing to run for Congress and get involved in politics. It's nice to see young people getting involved. What caused you to, I guess, have a quote unquote awakening and realize that there was a problem and then something had to be done? How old were you? And then, was there a driving force specifically behind it?
Right after I graduated with my undergraduate degrees from UCCS, I started a small business, and I still have it to this day. That's natural marketing. And the whole goal of that particular business is to educate people about sustainability and what that word actually means. I'm interested in the environment if it can be, and activities for the environment if they can be supported by the free market. So I do things like recycling, and I've always been really interested in the food supply because I myself was affected by pesticides and have been on about an 80% organic diet ever since. And so I was really inspired to educate people about their health, about the environment, about supporting small businesses and how important it is to keep your dollar in the local economy. And one of the things that our company did was put on a farmer's market in Pueblo, Colorado at the Art Center. And I was getting everything ready, and I had different rules for my privately run market than the publicly run markets. So the Pueblo Regional Building had different rules for me and different permitting processes, which cost me an additional about $2,000 for the event. Then the Pueblo City County Health Department had different rules for me that actually turned away about 7 paying vendors that were coming from around the state to come to our farmers market. And then the city sales tax people had different rules, including making me go get a background check to have my farmers market. And I actually have a concealed carry, so I've already been through all of that process. But they made me pay for all of this, made me feel like a criminal, got it all done. And then we were in the market. I wrote to the city council, county commissioners, and city manager, and I outlined for them the different rules for my market, privately run, versus the publicly taxpayer subsidized markets. And I said, listen, this is really unfair. This has cost me a lot of extra money. This has made it hard for me to make money this year. And I didn't get one response from any of those people. To this day, I have not gotten a response. And at that moment, I made it my goal to make sure that these people that call themselves representatives, that we get people in there that are actually willing to listen to the people who they claim they represent. And this was my own city council, but the same can be said at the state and federal level. I'm so tired of people that are supposed to take being a representative as an honor and turning that into their own way to line their own pockets and for their own benefit. And it frustrates me. It frustrates a lot of people, but I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to show them that a young female is capable of doing something good for her community, and that they have no reason to discriminate me just because I'm a privately run market versus something that's publicly run.
It's nice to hear somebody actually realize, especially again, a young person such as yourself, not that I'm an old fogey, but, I probably have about 10 years on you, if not more. And usually your generation is not on par with, with what the things that you're speaking about. You've got me blown away, Tisha. I mean, every time I hear you speak, you honestly, you blow me away. Now I know why Michael Badnarik, backs you and supports you and believes in you. I mean, obviously, I respect his opinion to begin with, but just hearing you speak, he said, all you have to do is hear Tisha speak for 15 minutes, and you're sold. So,
well, that's very kind. I appreciate that. But the reason is because I've lived through this, and I'm not just, I don't have talking points that have been created for me from a political junkie. I'm a real person. I'm a real small business owner. I'm someone that's being affected by federal regulations, and I represent the people, and that's why people feel that way, because I'm a voice for others who are tired of getting beat up by the system when you're playing by the rules.
Yeah, they're rigged rules.
That's right. That's right.
And what better of a person to actually run for a position of office than somebody that understands that it's an honor to have that duty. Mm-hmm. It's not a position of power so you can, make money and abuse people and avenge debts or anything else. The people, maybe someone pissed you off and you're going to get back at them now because you're a congressman or a congresswoman.
Right.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear somebody say it's an honor. We're going to get cut off by the break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss the rest of my interview with Tisha. She is a breath of fresh air in politics. I'm telling you. Check out her website. I'll bring it up really quick for the break here, so I can tell you it is Casida2012.com. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hanging out with Tisha Casida, who is a breath of fresh air for politics, and I pray and hope that the people of Colorado vote her in so that we can get a little bit of real change, injected into a festering wound that would be, Capitol Hill. It's really horrible. I mean, even some of these fake wannabe Tea Party people that ran, like Marco Rubio, and I didn't support him. I'm in Florida. I didn't support him. I saw through him. I used to tell people Rubio's staff would be out at gun shows, and I'd go and give them DVDs. I freaked one of them out. She saw me a couple months later at another gun show, and she's like, "You're the guy that gave me those scary movies." Oh, my God. I watched them, and they freaked me out. I was like, Rubio supports them, so just so you know. And, oh, no, he'll fight. And since he's gotten into office, he's just another dirtbag that, war, so... He I didn't see him, going against the NDAA, which that leads me to our next topic. What do you think about the NDAA? I personally think they're just using it. I mean, it's as a fear weapon. Like, oh, see, we can kick the crap out of you legally now, like a bully, But
right.
What do you see? What are your thoughts on it, Tisha?
Well, I've written a little bit about it on our website, and I do think that they're trying to use it as a fear tactic. The beautiful thing is, I try to look at everything in a positive light as much as I can, is I think that all of this stuff coming out of the Congress and out of the White House is a sure sign that they're very concerned about the American people. And I mean that in a good way. I think that the American people are starting to rise up and be resilient and speak out and stop listening to the talking heads. And I think more and more conversations are going on in every community, in every state, about the atrocities at the federal level of government. And so this stuff that's coming out that basically denies us of any type of right guaranteed by the Constitution is just a way for them to try and make quote unquote legal whatever they want to do. And of course, they can't. They don't have that power. As Michael Badnarik always says, it really begins and ends with us. We are the enforcers of our liberty. And at the end of the day, that's probably what it's going to come down to, is us standing up for our rights. But the NDAA is a terrible piece of legislation. They leave completely open what it means or how you can interpret a belligerent act, who could be called a terrorist. It takes away all of your rights for due process. It's a very, very intimidating piece of legislation. But at the end of the day, we can stand up for ourselves, period. Why? Our rights come from our Creator, our God. And my right to life is not going to be stopped or impaired by the federal government because I'm not doing anything wrong. And more people, I think, understand this. And that's a great thing for our society. And so obviously it's something that I think needs to be repealed. But before that can happen, I think we just need people in our communities standing up for one another. We have to stand up for our fellow countrymen. And then we need to exercise county sheriffs and their power to stand up against the federal government when the federal government starts to get out of control. So those are kind of my gut feelings on it.
Again, like Michael Badnarik says, all you have to do is listen to her speak, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, when was the last time you heard anybody ever running for any political office even mention half of what Tisha just did in 2 minutes? Never. Ever. Well, maybe the libertarian candidate who never gets any media coverage, ever. Yeah. And you never see him running for Congress, only for president. You never see anybody with your knowledge and your chutzpah running for Congress. So I really hope you get in. You know, I'd say hope and pray, but I always say you can, wish or pray in one, wish in one hand and crap in the other, and tell me which one weighs more. But
that's exactly right. It takes a lot of hard work.
Exactly. Is there any way people can support you that even aren't in Colorado? Is there any way that they can support you?
Absolutely. Right. I mean, we're a grassroots machine. We really do have the opportunity to win this election. There's enough people that we can pull from both parties that are very upset with what the parties themselves are doing. And then there's an equal number of independents in our state and in our district. So we really do have an opportunity to win. This campaign is about winning. It's really, I also, have a purpose in trying to educate people about what's going on. But the biggest thing, if people live out of state and if they can throw a little bit of money our way as a donation, that's incredibly helpful. It adds up. That's what supported our campaign this far. And, we're getting a lot of support from outside of the state with people who understand the importance of having a Congress that's willing to stand up for liberty. I'm representing the people in my district, but I will be speaking for the American people. And so, the greatest way that people can help right now, if they can afford to, is to throw us a little bit of money. And the second thing is they can go to our website and join our email list. And if they can send this information on to others who will be willing to support us, then that would be incredibly helpful.
And tell them about your website and where they can donate.
If you go to Casida2012.com, it's spelled C as in cat, A, S as in Sam, I, D as in dog, A, 2012.com. And there's a big donate button right there that you can follow. And on there, you can also see most everything that's on there I've written myself. And I encourage people to read and comment. And then our contact information is there. You can see the to join email list as well on the homepage. And you can join up there and we'll add you to the list and keep you apprised of different activities and things that we're doing.
And ladies and gentlemen, don't think that she's, again, just some run-of-the-mill candidate that is spewing some talking points. Trust me, Tisha knows a lot. And we're going to get into a few more things because I've got another half hour with her. So I urge you guys to stay tuned because you're not going to hear anybody else running, any other candidate, okay, for Congress, ever talk about this stuff. She's like a female young version of Ron Paul. So, and, I guess you could say her mentor is Michael Badnarik. So, who could ask for anything more, like the song says, you know what I mean?
Thank you. I would like to say that Ron Paul has been an integral part of me waking up and learning a lot of this, especially when it comes to monetary policy. And I became interested in Ron Paul when I started learning a little bit more about lending and banking because I have a Colorado real estate license. And so was getting confused about what happened after 2008, wanted to research a little bit, and really the debasing of our currency is probably our biggest problem after this National Defense Authorization Act. So I think Ron Paul has done a lot for our country and a lot to educate people. I think he's a wonderful human being. And that's something that is really lacking in Washington, D.C. There's a truth deficit. There's an integrity deficit. Ron Paul is one of these people. I've had the opportunity to meet him just very briefly, and you can just see the light coming from this man. He's the real deal, and we need a whole lot more people like him in office, whether it's the state, federal, or local levels. We just need people in there, like we've discussed. We need people willing to have the integrity to represent people, and you're not always going to be right, and you're not always going to be liked, but you can stand up for the truth. And that will do our country and our world a whole lot of good right now. Wow.
Just wow. You see? If you could get some airtime and say things like that and people, could hear it, I think it would, give people hope. Because I know the chat room is just, they're really, a lot of people in the chat are like, wow, she's giving me hope. We're going to get cut off by the break. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. During the break, Tisha and I were having a quite an interesting conversation, and we think we came up with the perfect running mate for Ron Paul for 2012, and that would be Michael Badnarik, because they would never ever hurt Ron Paul, because they would definitely not want Michael in charge and president. They would never want him in. If you think they're afraid of Ron Paul, they would never want Michael Badnarik as the president. So Ron Paul would be shielded just by that alone. It's like having Chuck Norris on your team.
Exactly.
They wouldn't mess with him. They would just leave him alone.
That's right.
There you go. Paul Badnarik 2012.
We'll start working on the T-shirts, buttons, and bumper stickers.
Right? I think it would. It goes well. It looks good. I could just picture it now. It'll look good on a T-shirt or on a bumper sticker.
It does have a good ring to it.
And finally, we'd have a vice president with a real set of balls. Our current vice president, he's a tool.
Really?
Talk about, whenever you want, good one-liners or to pick on somebody, he's easy fodder. That's why most people don't even bother to do it anymore, because it's just easy. It's like picking on the mentally handicapped. All right. And I'm not picking on the mentally handicapped, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that it would be like picking on someone that was mentally handicapped. It's unfair. So, Tisha, getting into health, because I know you're really involved in healthy living and healthy eating. A lot of people might say, well, she's just a regular politician, but what does she know about health? So what do you know about healthy eating and everything else?
Well, as I had talked about briefly, I got really sick after I left high school to go to college, and my sickness was really kind of around with I don't want to say an emotional disorder per se, but my central nervous system. I'd have panic attacks. I had a really hard time controlling my mood. It just didn't feel good or feel as good as I should for a 18-year-old girl. And what I did is I educated myself about what I may have been exposed to, because I was a political science major in addition to a business major, and environmental science was something I was interested in. And then I cleaned up my diet. I took out all of the things that could really be having a negative impact on how I felt, which include like hydrogenated oils, which are a trans fat, which the body does not necessarily recognize, and that's in almost anything that's packaged or processed now. Refined sugar and high fructose corn syrup. A lot of the high fructose corn syrup, which is, again, in almost everything that we consume, is most likely genetically modified, which has a whole different set of implications for people's health that are not even known yet, because we're the human race and we're not really sure how manipulating the genetic structure of molecules will affect us. And then other things like white bread without any type of nutrients. And there's just a whole bunch of things that most of us, unfortunately, eat every day because we're on a very low budget, or because we just don't have time to plan out our meals and what type of nutrients our bodies are intaking. But I researched all of that, cleaned up my diet, and became very interested in the impact of what we eat, not only on ourselves, but also the environment that we live in, and the implications it has on future generations. We're made up of DNA, and when we decide to make babies, then we're transferring our DNA to the next generation. And I am a health nut. I think it's really important to stay healthy. And really, for people that are listening right now, the reason you should be concerned about your health is if you're not healthy, you can't fight for liberty. If you don't feel good, you're just not as capable of doing things. It's just it's a proven fact. If you don't feel good, you're not as productive. So protecting our health, I think, has a lot of implications. And I do feel like the the government, the Republicans and the Democrats, don't do a good job of protecting us. It's really up to us to protect ourselves and what we consume. And so I encourage people to become educated. I've written on that a little bit as well. And, some of the top things you can do are drink a little bit of apple cider vinegar every day, which makes your body less acidic. Even though it tastes acidic, it makes your body less acidic. And only cancer can only grow or fester in your body if it's overly acidic. So taking a little bit of apple cider vinegar, organic apple cider vinegar every day is good. And then really trying to take those things that I mentioned and get them out of your system. Stop eating them. Eat foods that come from the earth, carrots, beans, grains, and get away from the processed foods that most likely have these toxins that cause really, really, really negative effects in your body.
Wow. Again, someone running for political office with knowledge of health. No, I can't see any plus side to putting her in office. Ladies and gentlemen, please support Tisha. She's just, again, she's a breath of fresh air, and she'll blow you away. I mean, she's even thrown me for a loop. It's nice to hear, again, it's nice to hear the younger generation is awake and understands what's going on, and you actually had your own experience which led you to waking up. And I think that's how most people have to, that's the path that they need to, or they have to travel without, without help from anybody else. They have to travel their own path of awakening. They have to realize what's going on. And usually most people don't realize what's going on until it affects them. This whole economy thing is going to affect a lot of people. Let me ask you this. What do you think about illegal immigration? Like, what do you think about how they're not doing anything on the borders? They're fueling it. Now the Obama administration removes, they're not funding the National Guard, so they're losing like half the troops that are going to be there. So now you're going to have like 14 troops for a couple hundred miles of border. It's ridiculous. What do you feel about that? What would you do to try to, correct the situation if you could?
Well, the biggest problem is that we have incentives here in our country to come here legally. If we had a system that was not a welfare state, it would put a huge stop on people wanting to come here, because unless you follow the rules, which is getting your citizenship, then you don't get to play and you don't get to be part of the game. But unfortunately, our system is set up where people who follow the rules are always the ones who get punished in the long run. So I think the most important thing is to change the welfare state. And I think that that's going to fix itself here pretty soon, because we're broke. Our country's broke. We don't have any more money, and it's going to be impossible to continue our social programs, our nation building, and a whole bunch of other things that aren't doing the American people any good. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I do think that we should have some type of fence on the border, but the type of fence that I'm most interested in is a human fence. I think that our troops that are overseas guarding other people's borders should just be guarding our own. I think that creates a human aspect to it, which is much more sustainable than an actual physical fence, although that would work too. But I think as far as if you looked at it from a libertarian standpoint, the best thing would be to have a human fence and have people down there. But we have to stop the incentive for people to come over here in the first place, and that's our problem. And I think it depends on what area you're in. You had mentioned the National Guard, and this is one of my big issue points. The National Guard was never supposed to be dictated from the federal level. They're supposed to be the quote-unquote militia, the state militia, and they're supposed to be controlled by the governor. And we really need to get back to that, where our own states have our own militia or our own guard to protect those states' people. And the reason that's important is because of the 10th Amendment. And because when the federal government, again, gets out of hand, it's up to us to constitutionally stand up for the people who live here. And the first thing, is the states can nullify legislation. The states can protect their citizens. And the second thing is the county sheriffs. So those are, when you had said the National Guard, I really think in my heart of hearts, to get really back, I don't think that we should have our National Guard being dictated by any federal entity. I think that should be the control of the governors, and that these state guards need to have more focus for the state, towards the state.
Wow. Impressive answer. I agree that the federal government shouldn't really have, the president shouldn't have the power over the National Guard. That's actually the governor's purview.
That's right.
But, in this backwards, bizarro world that we live in, Tisha, black is white and black is black. Up is down, down is up. It's ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the final segment of the first hour of the Sunday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. I'm hanging out with my guest, Tisha Casida, who is running for Congress. And if you haven't been swayed by her after listening to her for the past hour, I mean, I know I was swayed within 15 minutes, the first time I heard her and spoke to her, because I was like, what? I was hooked. And then I listened to her interviews with Joe, and I've checked her out on her website. I've heard her thoughts. I've seen how she feels about things, and I decided to have her on the show. And I have to tell you, just having her on the show, I'm blown away again, because it's refreshing to know that, there is hope. Sometimes you get disillusioned. You're like, oh, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Why are we fighting? Well, Tisha is why we are fighting. Because look, there is hope. So if I could vote for you, I know I'm in a different state, but if I could vote for her, I would. But since I can't, the best thing I could do is at least give her some form of a spotlight to at least expose herself to the rest of the country, because she would not only be representing her district, but like she said, she would be a voice for the American people, which I thought that was refreshing to hear you say that. And it was very refreshing to hear you say that, to do this job, to be in this position of being a congressman or a senator or the president or whatever, it's an honorable duty. It's an honor that shouldn't be abused. I was very impressed with when you said that, Tisha. So, golf clap and kudos to you. What did you think about the whole financial situation? Because we have about 8 minutes left. So I want to give you the floor. What do you think about the devaluation of the dollar? What do you see coming? Do you see a way to fend it off? What are your thoughts?
Well, long story short, I think that the system is rigged, and that the people in the positions of power know this and have known this for a long time. The creation of the Federal Reserve was really never meant to stabilize out anything. And in fact, it hasn't. It's really been the cause of most of our problems. The thing that irritates me most is that currency is how people build wealth and how we create what we call our quality of life. And by the Federal Reserve continually pumping more money into the system, which is actually just putting more zeros in different places in different banks and around the world, it's really creating a lot of problems for the end consumer here in this country. And because we don't really know what they're doing, they're not transparent at all, really. There's a little bit of transparency, but not near as much as there should be. We don't know what they're doing and all of the implications it's having. And so, again, most people in their day-to-day life struggling to survive, living paycheck to paycheck, which is something that I have done myself all my life, don't have the time to investigate the intricacies of the dollar and why they can't go to the store and buy as many groceries as they used to. And that's the problem. And someone said that inflation is the most incendiary of taxes. And the reason is because people cannot see what's happening to them. That's what's happened to our country. It's getting worse and worse every day. The way that we can fix this is, several different things. We can end legal tender laws and have competing currencies. We could get our currency back to where it's actually backed by something, whether it's gold or silver, any type of metal or otherwise with value. And we can also, at the state level, work on creating state banks, which would sound socialist, but they're really not. They're there to protect and benefit the people of that state versus this Federal Reserve System that is not protecting anyone. It is only benefiting people in high positions of power. So I think there's lots of solutions. And at the end of the day, there's a black market that's been created and will continue to grow. The black market is the freest market, and people aren't stupid. People will play by the rules as long as they can, and then they're not going to play by the rules anymore. And it's happening. And, things like barter networks and local currencies, these are starting to develop. And it's our job as citizens in our own constituency to make sure that people who are working on creating different currencies and creating other means of creating wealth are protected, because there's nothing wrong with creating a system where the wealth is actually backed by something. So although I think it's really dangerous what's going on, I think there's a ton of hope. And I think there's a lot of things that we can do, again, at a local level where it's more transparent, more accountable, and we can just work with each other to create that quality of life that is really important for us, for that quote unquote American dream.
I agree. Let me ask you this. Do you think that any of the current people running Santorum or, Perry's kind of irrelevant, or what's his name, Romney or Gingrich, like they're all fakes, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're all puppets. They're all controlled by the very same people mm-hmm. that controlled Bush and Clinton, and they currently control our current president. So if, obviously you support Ron Paul. Obviously mm-hmm. he's probably the only person you would support, correct? President?
Yeah, right now. I mean, there is Gary Johnson, who's going for the Libertarian nomination, who is also, I think, a phenomenal human being who I like very much, who I think would also make a great president. But Ron Paul, I think, is in that position where he could really make a difference right now.
Let me ask you this. If, in the scenario, if Dr. Paul doesn't get the Republican nomination, okay, let's just say if, you don't want to curse it, but let's say he doesn't get it, right? Mm. Do you think that he would then try to run third party? Because then it might clash with Gary Johnson. Maybe they could work together. Maybe
That's right. Yeah, that would be my hope. If he did decide to do a third party run, that he would work with Gary Johnson on some level, in some way. Because I in my heart of hearts, I believe that the American public is ready for a candidate that's not spit out by either party. As a matter of fact, our founding fathers would be really happy if we did that, because the two-party system they're all the same. It's corruption versus integrity. That's our problem. It has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's a joke. It's a joke to keep the American people thinking that we actually make a difference by who we vote for, because they're all the same. It doesn't matter. Not to say that every candidate is bad, but the parties themselves are they're control mechanisms. And so, if Dr. Paul and Gary Johnson did decide to do something, I'll tell you what, I think the American public is ready for it. I really believe that in my heart of hearts, because people are so tired of being lied to. And the man we have right now as president has lied, and the people that we have running for the Republican nomination, sans Ron Paul, have lied.
Yeah, they're completely trying to sandbag Dr. Paul too. You can see and they really don't have anything on him, so they try to make a mountain out of a molehill. And it turns out, I forget exactly who wrote them, but it came out the other day that it was, they're not even connected to Dr. Paul, and they're trying to sandbag him and everything else. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you speak about freedom, you're going to get attacked.
That's right.
No matter what. Well, you've met a lot of these candidates, like you've met, what's his name, Gingrich and all them. What are they like in person? Are they just as slimy as they are on TV, or do they come off a little, are they more personable when you meet them in person?
I think that you can, I'm an energy person, so you can just automatically tell when you're in the company of someone who has good energy, like a good person. And I'm a pretty good, I, as many other people, are capable of understanding the energy of people that are not so good. And so I've been very blessed to meet Dr. Paul and Gary Johnson. And I think those are two individuals that are amazing human beings that have done the right thing. And Mr. Gingrich, I didn't really get to meet him for too long, but that was at the opening of one of his movies in Washington, D.C. And I went with a couple good friends. And to be honest, I think that there's a lot of people connected that are using a machine to create a lot of fear. And that's something that Mr. Gingrich does on a daily basis, especially with the Middle East. And I understand that there's such a thing as terror, but unfortunately, I think that it's being used to scare the American people to a point of making rash decisions that negatively impact not only the American people, but a lot of innocent lives overseas. And that's something in my lifetime, in our lifetime, that we really need to bring some truth and light to, is the people that we're hurting with our wars, because there's other ways of taking out the bad guy than killing as many innocent people that we're killing. So yeah, I get good vibes and bad vibes, but the best vibes I get are from Dr. Paul and Gary Johnson, the people I've met so far.
Good. And I consider you to be quite an honest young lady. We're out of time. Tisha, thank you so much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for hour number 2. Go check out Tisha's website and support her. Give her some help. It's Casida2012.com. CASIDA 2012.com. Stay tuned for hour number 2. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2. Joe, my buddy, my cohort in crime,
hello,
is riding shotgun with me. Mr. Joe Joseph, Joe Squared.
Joe Squared.
As Tim calls you. Honorable Round Eye.
Honorable Round Eye.
Too bad the listeners will never hear those promos, dude.
No, they will never,
That's too funny, though.
hear those promos.
Oh,
ever.
That was funny, dude. Let's just say Joe's new nickname is Honorable Round Eye.
Oh, very good. Yes, very good. Hey, so you had Tisha on last hour.
Yes, I want to thank you for introducing me to her.
Hell
dude,
yeah.
I was, I heard last time she was on your show, I was in the background muted, and Michael had said to you that she was like, you can't listen to her for more than 15 minutes without being just totally blown away. And I was like, come on. Now, I take, what he has to say with, a lot of respect. I respect what he has to say in his opinion. So I checked her out and I listened to your interviews with her, and I was just floored. I was like, holy crap, this can't be. There can't be, a young person out there that actually wants to get involved in politics that's awake and doesn't have their head up their butt. And I was rather impressed, and then I knew that she wasn't obviously going to get a ton of endorsement. So after you had her on twice, and I heard her, I was like, all right, cool, bring her on. I want to bring her on, and I want to give her an hour. She's just an amazing young lady. Yeah, sure is. And whatever you give her for a question, that's why I'm like throwing you questions on the Skype, is because it doesn't matter how hard or controversial a question you throw at her, she has the answers like lickety split. And you're just like, wow, I never thought to answer it that way. Duh. I mean, it's really kind of funny. Well, dude, it's just amazing because you and I are in our mid-30s, okay? I figured that pretty much the youth after our generations were just, brainwashed. And I'm amazed when I see these young people that are in their mid-20s. Even Bob Tuskin, all joking aside and busting Bob's balls aside, I'm impressed with Tuskin because it's like he's an old soul trapped in a young kid's body. Yeah. It's another one. He's in his mid-20s, and he's got a head on his shoulders. That a lot more mature. Yeah, most of these 25-year-olds don't. So it's refreshing to see these young people. I mean, we're talking like we're old farts now, right? But it's refreshing to see people in the, a generation, 10 years younger than us
Well, Popeye, I'll meet you tomorrow at the Burger King for our senior coffee, okay? Is that right?
Right? We're talking like we're old fogies, but it's just nice to see that this generation that I thought, and, for a lot of times people might get dismayed and think that are lost. They're really not. There are these young people that are, they do blow you away once in a while. So it's good. It gives me hope. And I'm going to tell you what, dude, she floored the chat room.
Well, see, that's why I always have people from, if I find somebody that's a lot younger or even in their teens, I've been getting, I can't tell you how many emails that I get from teens on YouTube because they listen to my show and they ask me questions. They're like, wow, are things really that bad? I'm 14. What? You're 14 and you're plugged in? Really? This is all right. So, I mean, she really does bring a little bit of hope to it. But, I mean, with Ron Paul leaving the mix because he's not running for re-election, somebody like her really needs to get in to pass the baton to,
Oh, well, dude, first of all, we do need some younger people in. We got to stop voting these old farts in that, I don't understand people when, I'd rather a person be, 60 years old. Well, why? Why wouldn't you want somebody like who understands and respects the old school ways of thought, but maybe, grew up in this era and understands the problems that we're facing today? That's one of the biggest problems. Why? Look at the reason why Hollywood's pushing this whole SOPA thing with the internet is because they can't adapt to peer-to-peer sharing. They can't adapt to the internet and to the way things are. So rather than them try to figure out and actually use their brains and try to figure out how to adapt to it, they'd rather force you to go back to their old draconian ways. And that's what this is about. That's what this comes down to at the end of the day. That's why Hollywood's supporting it the way they do, because they're being selfish, as it were.
Sure.
And anybody involved in the industry can get pissed off at me for saying that. I understand you make money on royalties and stuff, but if you adapted to the way things are done now, you'd still be able to do it. Look, the answer to Napster and all that was pretty much iTunes and Amazon selling MP3s for 99 cents.
Right.
And what happened? People were pretty much more than willing to pay for the song as long as they didn't have to buy the whole album and they could download it.
Well, when you think about how much CDs were, I mean, at the height of CD popularity, they were $16, $17 a CD. Now you can go download the whole album for $9.99. I mean, that's cool, dude. I'm all for that. So, I mean,
you don't have to get that huge CD, cardboard case, which you don't need. People are throwing out the CD cases, the plastic ones anyway. The only thing they keep is the CD. No one can ever find the plastic cases for their CDs ever after like 6 months.
Another thing that I find very interesting is the fact that a lot of people think that no one's listening, that they get discouraged when they keep getting blown off and everything like that. Well, it's funny. I got an email today from somebody who it blew me away, and it kind of validated that people are still listening. And it goes like this. It says, "Thank you for the great interview with Alex Jones." I did this 2.5 weeks ago, I'm positive that you have inspired and woke up many patriots during the interview. I was listening to your interview during a dinner, but I had to stop eating because I became too emotional and started crying. You remind me of one of the famous quotes, "One man with courage is a majority," by Thomas Jefferson. Thank you again. What do you say to that? I mean, if that totally re-energizes and should validate to anyone out there that people are listening no matter what. So don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Ron Paul comes in third. There may or may not have been some Iowa shenanigans out there. You got to keep fighting, because in the process, we're bringing more people into the fold. Pretty soon, we're going to be able to turn the tide. It's just going to take a little bit of time. That's all.
I agree. One of the things that kept me going when I first started this years ago, especially on YouTube, my first YouTube channel, I had almost 10,000 subscribers at the time I got shut down.
Yeah, you were a big
close to it. Yeah, man, I was right up there with one. I was one of the top channels at the time, right up there with Enough Respect and the rest of them. And I was one of the first ones killed in the purge of 2008. That was when they purged all the Ron Paul videos too. They took out Mox News' original channel, C-SPAN junkie as well. See, I remember all of this. I go back a few years. Yes, I do. Anyway, you know, that level of censorship, you know, by destroying all that evidence, you know, you would think that people would be like, oh, I can't do it anymore. You know, I give up, which a lot of people do. And I kept chugging on. And what kept me going was the fact that I would get comments on the new channels, or even comments on videos, you know, and stuff. People would say, like, and to this day, thank you. Those two words are so powerful. When someone says thank you for standing up for me, you know, I've had people say thank you. You know, I wish I could say what you do, but I can't because of my job. But I support you behind the scenes. Thank you so much. You know, so it's empowering to know, or it makes me feel good to know, I should say, that I give a voice to the people that don't, you know, can't, you know, maybe they can't speak up because they're afraid to or whatever. So, you know, through me, they have a voice. And that drives me to be, you know, better at what I do. And, you know, that's why I try to bring the information I try to bring to the table. You know, that's kind of why I talk about the things I talk about, because people have kind of come to expect that from us. You know what I mean? You've been in this for a long time too, Joe, so you know what I mean.
Sure, I know exactly what you mean. But it's just, we all got to get out there and we all have to fight. It's no more time sitting on our hands. That time's over. Can't do it. You got to get out there, even if it's making flyers, putting them on the cars at the Walmart that are parked out there.
Everybody should make a YouTube channel. Everybody that hears this broadcast should make a YouTube channel. Start making videos about whatever.
And if you don't make videos, just comment.
Yeah, just make one and start commenting, going all over the place. Thumb up, give thumbs up to the good videos and stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I know JJ promoted this for me. I did promise that I would also be bringing on, or at least be introduce you, I should say, to another candidate that's running for president. And it's on the Democratic side, so you don't have to just vote for President Barack Obama.
That's right.
If you want to vote for a Democrat. There is another Democratic choice running. I would go check out the New Hampshire race.
I found his slogan.
What's his slogan?
Forget the phony, vote for the pony.
That's right, because he offers a free pony. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe and I are talking about the other Democrat candidate in the presidential race for 2012, and that would be Mr. Vermin Supreme. And I'd like to give Vermin a few minutes so you can hear him speak. They had a quote-unquote lesser-known presidential candidates forum yesterday. Or actually, no, apparently.
It was December 19th.
Yeah, this was December 19th, so this was actually a couple weeks ago, but I found it yesterday. Let me rephrase that. So I'm going to air it, and I'm going to give Mr. Vermin Supreme some airtime for a second, because I think this is interesting. Like I said, if you vote Democrat, you don't have to vote for Obama anymore. You can always vote for Vermin.
Putting 2 minutes to Mr. Vermin Supreme.
Thank you. Gingivitis has been eroding the gum line of this great nation long enough and must be stopped. For too long, this country has been suffering a great moral and oral decay in spirit and in incisors. A country's future depends on its ability to bite back. We can no longer be a nation indentured. Our very salivation is at stake. Together, we must brace ourselves as we cross over to the bridge work into the 23rd century. Let us bite the bullet and together make America a sea of shining smiles from sea to shiny sea.
Well, let me explain something really quick. This guy sitting up there at the dais, he's got a suit jacket on that's like neon green with tiger stripes on it. He's got a huge Santa Claus beard, and he's got a huge, like, 3-foot tall galosh, like, huge boot on his head. And at first, when you're first looking at him, because they're zoomed in on him, it looks like he's dressed like a wizard because of the beard. And you're like, what is this guy dressed like? You know, what does he think he's the dude from Harry Potter? You know?
Yeah, I'll put a link to the website in the chat room for people to see. That way, you can actually go there and then watch the vid. There's a link to YouTube, the YouTube vid.
Yes, I'm gonna play the rest, but I wanted to get so you have a visual. Vermin sitting there. Picture like a drunken Santa Claus, okay, with a really bad clothing designer.
Now, friends, some people will tell you that this mandatory toothbrushing law is about the secret dental police kicking down your door at 3 a.m. to make sure you've brushed. Friends, it is not. Some will mention the dental re-education centers or the preventative dental maintenance detention facilities. It's about none of these things. It's not about the government-issued toothpaste containing an addictive yet harmless substance. No, friends, it is not even about DNA gene splicing to create a race of winged monkeys to act as tooth fairies. Friends, what this mandatory toothbrushing law is really about is strong teeth for a strong America. My name is Vermin Supreme. I am a friendly fascist. I am a tyrant that you should trust, and you should let me run your life, because I do know what is best for you. Yes, I am a politician. I will promise you anything your little electorate heart desires, because you are my constituents. You are the informed voting public, and because I have no intention of keeping any promise that I make. Vote early, vote often. Remember, a vote for Vermin Supreme is a vote completely thrown away. I would like to take this moment to acknowledge my mother, who is in the audience here today. Please stand up, Mother. Please stand up. If you can stand up, please stand up. She's going to try and stand up so you can acknowledge her. This is my mother. There we go. And 5 years ago this April, I gave her a kidney. My challenge to you people, everybody on the stage and everybody in the audience, give up a kidney.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Supreme. Thank you. The next 2-minute opening, Mr. Randall Terry. Sir, you have 2 minutes from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Mr. Supreme, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Like some of the other candidates, including former Governor Romney, this is not your, shall we say, first rodeo.
Let us say that.
This is not the first time you have run for president in the New Hampshire primary. And President Romney has been accused, and I'm not taking a position one way or the other, of taking different positions on different issues. I'm asking you right now, do you still stand by your pledge made in 2008 to provide a pony for every American?
Yes, I do, sir. Free ponies for all Americans, one of the overlooked issues in America today. My free pony platform is, of course, a jobs creation program. It will create lots and lots of jobs. Once we switch over to a pony-based economy, we'll also lower our dependence on foreign oil. We'll also be able to turn all that pony poop into methane gas and wonderful compost, so we'll be able to up our soil that is being depleted by agrochemicals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, the important thing to realize is that it is a federal pony identification program where you will need your pony with you at all times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Supreme. Thank you, Mr. Green. Beth, your next question is for Mr. Supreme.
Mr. Supreme, I wanted to follow up on Ambassador Shoemaker's question.
Yes.
Regarding the ponies.
Yes.
Is that the only government entitlement program that you support? What other entitlement programs are you for?
Just that one. That's enough. But in the vein of energy production, I'd also like to address my harnessing the awesome power of zombies for energy sources. It's not just to run away from anymore. No, we have giant turbines that we're working on, and we will have lots of zombies, and we'll just sort of dangle brains in front of them, and then they will turn the giant turbines, creating energy to lessen the dependence on foreign oil in America here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Supreme, your 30-second closing statement, please.
My name is Vermin. My name is Vermin. Vermin Supreme. My name is Vermin. My name is Vermin. My name is Vermin. Vermin. Vermin Supreme. And you can vote. And you can vote. And you can vote for me for president if you want to. And my name is Vermin. And okay. Thanks very much for coming out today. Oh, one more thing. Jesus told me to make Randall Terry gay with magic sprinkled up.
I guess the guy next to him, I didn't see the whole thing, but I guess the guy next to him, I didn't see the whole debate, but I guess he said things that pissed him off or whatever, and he got up and sprinkled the hell is that crap? Glitter all over the guy next to him. And he said, Jesus told me to make Randall Terry gay. So he proceeded to sprinkle glitter on him and say, you gay or whatever. So the guy's a performance artist, apparently. So my wife did research on him earlier, and she told me, she's like, he's a performance artist. And I guess that's, maybe he's apparently done this before because they know who he is.
Well, he ran in 2008.
There you go. I'm sure he'll probably get more votes than Santorum. Oh, my God. But there is hope if you don't want to vote for Barack Obama, ladies and gentlemen, but you don't want to vote for somebody else. You'd rather not vote, because Ron Paul's a Republican. If you still like to vote along the party lines because you still buy into the two-party system, then feel free to vote for the other Democrat choice, Mr. Vermin Supreme. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Like I said, last segment, fear not if you don't want to vote for Obama, but you want to stick to your quote-unquote party lines, then you could always vote for Vermin Supreme. Vote for the guy with the huge galosh on his head. Ugh. Like the song says, Joe, the freaks come out at night.
I like the guy.
He's got an interesting view on a few things. He's known to walk around with a huge toothbrush, apparently, my wife says.
Hey, I'm cool with that.
She says that he's got a smaller boot, apparently, that he walks around with on his head.
But see, if Ron Paul's not running for president, or he gets, he doesn't go third party, or he doesn't get the Republican nod, then typically what I do is I just write my own name in.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you do if you got to call Joe Joseph's new president of the United States? What?
Dude, you have no idea. You have no idea how upside down this country would be the very next day.
Oh, I think I have a pretty good clue. You want to hear?
Oh.
Wait, you want to hear upside down? I have upside down for you. You think our founding fathers would puke? Did you hear about this story? You know where Belglade, Florida is? It's down by Lake Okeechobee.
Okay. Sure.
It's a real. It's gotten bad over the years, and you neglect an area for a certain period of time. A lot of times, it's done so that you can get political leverage using that as a football, and it's been neglected. And there's a lot of crime and violence. There's a huge uptick in it, and rather than the residents go arm themselves. And again, this is why I'm all for open carry. With the craziness that's going on in this world, open carry would deter a lot of crime. But these people aren't arming themselves. They had apparently, I'll play the clip, but there was it's like 2 minutes, but there's an owner, I guess the guy owned like a sporting goods store or convenience store or whatever. And he was robbed, and after the kid robbed him, he shot him for no reason. Like, the guy gave him all the money in the register, and then he plugged him anyway, which it doesn't make any sense. You took a human life for nothing. Like, why did you do it? Was it, And they caught the kid, and he's never had the kid's never had a criminal offense before. He's just some college student, So for whatever reason, he plugged the guy and killed him. Now, part of the problem is these residents are all emotional, and they're calling literally. One of them calls during this meeting. I guess they had it was a memorial, and it turned into like a public meeting or whatever. And the people were calling for martial law. The mayor wants to hire a private security contractor to come in. It's just like why, and it's like what? And then there was one resident, this female, stood up, and she was like one of the only people that had a head on her shoulder. She's like, we don't need a private security firm. We need the friggin' sheriff's department to do their job.
Or just the people to exercise their rights.
Of course. But see, you can see how there's agencies that'll use this as a political football. Well, we need more money. We need this. I'm tired of hearing, in this day and age, cops have so many tanks and AR-15s and everything else. Come on. I know I'm not knocking it and saying it's not a dangerous job. It is. For the good police officers that are out there, it's an extremely dangerous job, and I respect you guys. That as long as you guys aren't violating people's rights and you're doing what you're supposed to do, then and you're awake. Which there are people that are like that. I respect you, 100%. But to the guys that abuse their power and stuff or don't use their head, I don't respect that.
I'd be the coolest cop on the face of the planet, hands down.
Well, I wouldn't. I can't be a cop. I'm not allowed. because I test too high. Literally, I'm too smart to be a cop. I read that article on air the other day. You heard about that, right?
Oh, yeah.
If it's over like 107. You know, somebody mentioned, they commented on Federal Jack, before I play this clip about Bo Glade, somebody commented about that. They said that they had, after binging on drugs and alcohol for like 10 years, they had gone through detox and everything. And a week after they were finished, they took a IQ test. And they scored on the IQ test something like, I think they said it was like 114 or 120 or something. And that's after detox and all this other stuff, right? And they were like, I can't believe, I wouldn't want to imagine what the cops on the lower end of the scale is, considering their high end is like 107. And this was after this person had been like on a binge for 10 years, and they had just been, detoxed and clean for like maybe a week. So that goes to show you the level of thinking that is running around out there with high-powered weapons and dogs and...
Or lack thereof.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's where I was going with it. So
the lack thereof, and like I said, I'd be the coolest cop ever, because one thing that's interesting is if you look back at what law is supposed to be like, the rule of law, that when there's a crime, there needs to be a victim. And so you think about, let's just take speeding, for example. Who's the victim? Is there a victim when you speed? Who was wronged?
Well, see, that's why I don't agree with that. That's why I couldn't be a police officer currently. I wanted to be a cop when I was younger, but there's a lot of things that you can't, to me, it's not honorable to nail somebody. You know what I mean? If the guy's being a dick and you have the power to do so, I guess, yeah, then do it. But I can't see the honor or the integrity in pulling, some 80-year-old woman over and giving her a ticket, because you have to fill your quota, or doing something to a teenager or something like that.
What they did was they changed the law to make it that the victim was the state or the municipality, not a person, the entity. That's how they got around that. That's how they can give you tickets now. That's why when you go, it's like Joe Joseph versus the state of Virginia. Oh, really? See, so that's how they do it. The state is the victim. And my thing is how can the state be a victim? It's not a person, it's an entity, So I couldn't morally or ethically give out a speeding ticket because I don't agree with it, because technically they're illegal. If you read the letter of the law, if you read what the law is supposed to be, then you can't technically do that. But, things have changed. The rule of law doesn't apply. Now it's the rule of men, and the law just, whatever. And people, they pay their speeding tickets, and because they want to keep their license, even though they really don't need one.
Well, I know, it's crazy, dude. That's why I try to educate people about Admiralty law and stuff. I told you about when I went down to Occupy Miami the first time, and they had like their little General Assembly meeting. I was having a conversation with a guy, and he's like, well, total freedom is not really a good thing. Some people need to have, certain restrictions on them. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, no, people get out of control if you give them, you'll have complete anarchy. You get out of control. Right. I said, well, what is anarchy? You think people are running around setting stuff on fire? It's not the law or the rules that stop people from doing that. It's they realize most people, as long as you don't pump them via the media and music and stuff, as long as you don't pump violence and all that crap into them to tell them that that's the culture and stuff, most people wouldn't want to burn their own homes down. Right. If you allow people to think openly and freely, most people would realize that that's a bad idea. Okay? But when through social manipulation and everything else and through generations, now you have a culture that does not think like that. It's the exact 180-degree opposite. So if all hell breaks loose, it's going to be real interesting.
Well, yeah, it's weird because we live in a society ruled by anarchy because the rule of law doesn't apply. It's everything is so corrupt.
Well, yeah, dude, everything, like I said to Tisha in the first hour, it's what's black is white, what's white is black, up, down, down, up, left, right, right, left. It's all just like, we're in bizarro world, dude.
Right.
We walked through the looking glass. That's where I came up with the inspiration for the name of my show originally. The original book by Lewis Carroll was Through the Looking Glass, and it's almost like we're standing in front of a mirror and we step through the mirror and we're on the other side, and it's in bizarro world and we can't get back.
Oh, I thought it was like After the Clockwork Orange or something like that, man.
That was a sick, twisted movie. You know, my mother saw that movie with my father when it came out, and she actually had to leave the movie theater. It disturbed her so much. And my mom was a pretty stern woman. So it was that movie was like hardcore in the day. What do they call that? Fear porn?
Fear porn.
Right? That's what Saw was, right? Or is that something else?
Yeah, oh yeah, Saw was freaking nuts, dude. The first one. But when you get on to like
18, so I mean,
when you're like Saw 22, it's like
that's what I call fear porn. It's to scare the crap out of people and to keep that fear-based energy flowing. It's an easy way to do it. It's ridiculous. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. Stay tuned. When Joe and I come back in the final segment, I'm going to play you this 2-minute clip. Residents of Belglade, Florida, calling for martial law. Unbelievable. Too cowardly to defend themselves. All right, as promised, ladies and gentlemen, here's the clip. It's like 2 minutes long. Unbelievable. Residents of Belglade, Florida.
In Belglade. Good evening. I'm Tiffany Kenny.
I'm Victor Blackwell. Thanks for watching. It was standing room only this morning at popular store owner Jimmy McMillan's funeral. He was shot and killed Monday by a robber after he handed over the money. There's a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Tonight, residents got vocal with city leaders demanding that more be done to make their streets safer. Randy Gyllenhaal was there.
Well, after months of increasing violence here in Belglade, the community has kind of reached a tipping point. Dozens of people packed into City Hall tonight at this meeting, trying to figure out ways to stop the violence and urging the Sheriff's Department to do more.
You, the citizens, are responsible.
They say it takes a village.
Because right now I live in a neighborhood that I don't even feel safe.
Finally coming together with loud voices.
This is not a third world country. We need help in Belgrade.
After more than a year of surging violence, Belglade is finally fed up. The new year is only 6 days old, and already there have been armed robberies and a senseless murder. The tipping point when Jimmy McMillan was gunned down at his convenience store and the shooter still on the loose.
Find him. Find him. Because he's going to kill somebody else if you don't.
It's violence like this, all too common in recent months, that finally brought out the crowds.
We're looking for solutions.
Mayor Steve Wilson, faced with growing backlash, even proposed hiring a private security force heavily armed to patrol the streets.
And be another set of eyes and ears.
And we don't need security. We need a working sheriff department out here. We might need martial law.
The solutions aren't easy to find. Many citizens want more sheriff's deputies on the street.
So why don't we have more of them out here?
But budgets are tight and the job is very dangerous in Belglade.
They were shooting AK-47 rounds over our heads with tracers to make us go away. We don't go away.
The sheriff's office says more than 30 deputies patrol the streets every day, but understand the concern. Much of the problem is from young people, unemployed, fueled by easy access to guns and drugs with zero respect for the law.
The young folks, when they tell you they got no fear, they got no fear. They got no hope. I don't have a job. How am I going to solve that?
And moving forward, there are plans to have future meetings like this to try to hash out even more issues. The public here just wants the sheriff to come to Belglade and talk.
No offense, residents of Belglade, but you can have meetings all you want to hash out, quote unquote, hash things out. It's not going to do you any good. Okay? You can sit and pontificate for hours on end about what you should or could do. What you need to do is start going out like they did 200 years ago, not even 200 years ago, 100 years ago out in the Wild West. How do they handle things? You go out with a posse. You find one of these dirtbag gangbangers. You take care of business right there. Ooh, vigilante, Popeye. You're supporting vigilante justice. Well, maybe I am. But, you know, that's how things have to get done. People need to start taking responsibility in their community and stop, oh, we need more cops. We need private security contractors. Why can't you walk down the street with an AR-15? Why do you got to pay some security contractor that does not have any allegiance to you whatsoever, Okay? Why are you going to pay that guy to be your bodyguard when you should be your own bodyguard? It's utterly ridiculous. Okay? And sometimes you're not going to be able to stop bad things. And I think it's horrible that they shot that guy and killed him. It's a senseless death. And they caught the guy since. I saw before I came on air today that they did catch the guy responsible. And he should be locked up for the rest of his life. Personally, actually, they're going for the death penalty, and I think they should. I don't care if the kid's in his 20s or not. You take a human life, ooh, Popeye, this is harsh. Well, you take a human life like that needlessly and cold-blooded, you need to be removed from the planet because there's really no rehabilitating that, So, my personal opinion doesn't mean that I'm not Superman or anything, so it doesn't mean that, my opinion really means anything, but that's how I feel. This is my platform. It's disgusting that they killed the innocent storekeeper, but I think it's just as disgusting that the residents are like, oh my God, martial law. And the one guy didn't make sense. I didn't catch that until the second time I played it when I was watching it as it was playing, Joe. The guy that said, we don't need contractors, we need our sheriffs to do the job, he then turns around and calls for martial law. Well, who do you think would be on the street if there was martial law, you dumb putz? I mean, ugh.
Well, they don't know any better, dude. Honestly, they don't know.
Well, but you know what I mean, Joe? Like, how are you going to talk out of both sides of your mouth like that? He's acting like he's informed on it, but if he thinks about it, what happened when they declared, quote-unquote, martial law, and it wasn't really declared, but they said it was, down in Louisiana? Who was rolling the streets after Katrina? Blackwater. You want them in your neighborhood?
Sure, man. Come on down, Blackwater. Actually, you know what? Blackwater kind of is in my neighborhood. It's about 45 minutes away. Actually, it's called Z now. Z. X-E.
I thought they changed it to Academy now.
That could be. USA Academy. Come down because there's commercials. There are commercials on the radio.
When we're in the Guard, that's where they send us to learn, combat and everything else. I mean, we already train in hand-to-hand combat, but they also... ever since 9/11, like if we're going to get involved in like hardcore anything, we train at Blackwater's facility. So it doesn't surprise me that they would call it Academy. Very shady name.
Well, they've changed the their public relations strategy.
Very misleading if you think about it. Come to Academy. Oh my God, I'm going to Academy. It sounds very good, doesn't it? I'm going to Academy.
And what's even more interesting is that's just the tip top of the umbrella company. But underneath them, there's a ton of little companies out there. So
when you say umbrella, it always makes me think of that movie Resident Evil. And it's funny because somebody said to me the other day, we were talking about the whole Endgame, and this is somebody that's not awake. Well, they're awake now. They're waking up, I should say. They're going through their process. And I was having a conversation with them, and they said to me, this reminds me that this shadow government kind of reminds me of the Umbrella Corp in that movie. And I was like, wow, good reference. You could see that their brain was, putting two and two together. And that was how, for them, like I said, everybody's got a way of looking at things and a way of understanding it, even though they come to the same conclusion. It's a little differently colored. Everybody's coloring book is just a little bit off from everybody else's. And, that was how they realized that. They were like, wow. They were able to use the movie and realize that there was they were like, wow, that's right in your face. And I was like, well, they do predictive programming too, but that's a whole complete different story. But it was good to see the light going on. So I have hope. I think this is the year that the tide is going to get turned, and not like overnight, like December 22nd, everybody's going to be like, oh my God, the New World Order. Joe Joseph and Popeye and everybody on Orion Talk Radio and all of them, they were all right. Oh, my God. No, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I think that it's going to be the tipping point where it's going to reach this point where things are going to start to speed up exponentially. And these elitist dicks know that, and that's why they're pushing all this stuff. I really believe a lot of this NDAA thing is a lot of it's fear tactics. Remember, they use the media and everything to scare the crap out of people. They need people to be afraid, Joe, because when people are afraid, then they're easier to control. If you're not thinking straight, if your body and brain are in fight or flight, you're not thinking straight, and I can get you to do whatever. Look what happened after 9/11. So people need to keep their heads on their shoulders no matter what happens. No matter what happens this year, people need to keep their heads glued on their shoulders and stay focused. Control your emotions and think. That's the best piece of advice I could give you. What do you think, Joe?
Hell yeah, man. I mean, you got to keep your eye on the ball, if you know what I mean, and not get too distracted. Just understand that exercise your God-given rights. If you do that, then you don't have to worry about martial law or anything like that. You embrace personal responsibility a little bit. I don't know, man. I feel a lot better in the last couple of months just talking to people and understanding that a lot of people sit in the shadows seeing what's going on and paying attention. They may be too timid to act. They may not be able to act, or they may just not want to act, but they know what's going on. And there are a lot more people out there than you would think, which is why I continue to do this. Because if there weren't, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be battening down the hatches.
Yeah, I get inspired when I see people. That's why, when you see comments on the YouTube channel or whatever on articles and people are like, hey, I agree. It's nice to see, that somebody's out there talking about this. I've had people that I've met down here that have said to me, it's so nice to know, first of all, people that knew me that didn't realize that I was the one that ran Federal Jack. I think that's hysterically funny. But especially when I've told them, I guess, sometimes people just don't pay attention. But when you run into somebody and they tell you that, oh, it's so nice to meet somebody that's on the same level because it's frustrating because, everybody down here is a zombie or whatever. So it gives other people hope too, when they start to see others. Oh, there are other people out there. There are a lot of people out there. And it used to be very taboo to bring it up and say it, but now people are starting to stand up and they don't care anymore. So
yes,
like I said, we're coming to that precipice, Joe. We're out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, the conversation is just going to carry over to Joe's show. So scoot over to Joe's chat room over at the Freedom Link Radio here on Orion Talk Radio.
Hells yeah.
And,
we're going to be talking conspiracies. Conspiracies tonight, folks.
One of my favorite topics.
It's going to blow. This is going to turn what you think of conspiracies on its head.
Well, there you go. I'm interested because I have no clue. Joe's just bringing me in, so I'd like to see too. Now you got me all salivating in anticipation. I'm going over there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is January 8th, 2012. The new year is already moving quickly. This is the Sunday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. I'm not wasting any more time. I want to get to my guest because I only have her on for an hour today, and I want to give her as much of the spotlight as possible. The reason I am bringing her on today is because I'm quite impressed with her stance on things and the fact that she's got, I know she's a female, but she's got a set of balls that wouldn't fit in a dump truck. Okay, she's running for Congress, and she actually knows what's going on, and she's not afraid to speak her mind, and she's a very, 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 very smart young lady. So I'd like to introduce you guys to her. You've heard her on Joseph's show before, but I'm pleased to bring her on my show for the first time. Let's welcome Tisha Casida. Tisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Popeye. Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
I think it's awesome that a young woman such as yourself is emboldened to stand up and do something. And, it gives me hope that the younger generations, are willing to stand up and do something. I'm glad there's still young people that aren't brainwashed by, the school system and everything else. So it's good to see young people such as yourself willing to get involved in politics, too, because this is a messy game. Nobody wants to get involved in politics at all.
If we don't do it, who will? And we'll be left living in tyranny. I think our country is quickly moving to a place where we're not able to speak freely or exercise any of the rights that so many people have already died for. And I do think that there's a whole new generation of freedom fighters that are interested in standing up for the right thing, which is leaving people alone to do their own thing and not having the federal government involved in every aspect of our lives, and allow us to create prosperity and to create peace. And that's kind of our human walk here on this planet. So I think there's a lot of hope. I don't think that a lot of the positive things get the type of press and media that we would like, but that's up to us to change. And you can't complain about it if you're not willing to do something about it. So as a good friend of mine says, put up or shut up.
Well, I'm inspired by the fact that, again, you're willing to run for Congress and get involved in politics. It's nice to see young people getting involved. What caused you to, I guess, have a quote unquote an awakening and realize that there was a problem and then something had to be done? How old were you? And then, was there a drive?
You have no reason to discriminate me just because I'm a privately run market versus something that's publicly run.
It's nice to hear somebody actually realize, especially, again, a young person such as yourself, not that I'm an old fogey, but, I probably have about 10 years on you, if not more. And usually your generation is not on par with, with what the things that you're speaking about. You've got me blown away, Tisha. I mean, every time I hear you speak, honestly, you blow me away. Now I know why Michael Badnarik, backs you and supports you and believes in you. I mean, obviously, I respect his opinion to begin with, but just hearing you speak, he said, all you have to do is hear Tisha speak for 15 minutes, and you're sold. So,
well, that's very kind. I appreciate that. But the reason is because I've lived through this, and I don't have talking points that have been created for me from a political junkie. I'm a real person. I'm a real small business owner. I'm someone that's being affected by federal regulations, and I represent the people, and that's why people feel that way, because I'm a voice for others who are tired of getting beat up by the system when you're playing by the rules.
Yeah, they're rigged rules.
That's right. That's right.
And what better of a person to actually run for a position of office than somebody that understands that it's an honor to have that duty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a position of power so you can, make money and abuse people and avenge debts or anything else. The people, maybe someone pissed you off and you're going to get back at them now because you're a congressman or a congresswoman.
Right.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear somebody say it's an honor. We're going to get cut off by the break, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss the rest of my interview with Tisha. She is a breath of fresh air in politics. I'm telling you. Check out her website. I'll bring it up really quick for the break here, so I can tell you it is Casida2012.com. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hanging out with Tisha Casida, who is a breath of fresh air for politics, and I pray and hope that the people of Colorado vote her in so that we can get a little bit of real change, injected into a festering wound that would be, Capitol Hill. It's really horrible. I mean, even some of these fake wannabe Tea Party people that ran, like Marco Rubio, and I didn't support him. I'm in Florida. I didn't support him. I saw through him. I used to tell people Rubio's staff would be out at gun shows, and I'd go and give them DVDs. I freaked one of them out. She saw me a couple months. Driving force specifically behind it.
Right after I graduated with my undergraduate degrees from UCCS, I started a small business, and I still have it to this day. That's natural marketing. And the whole goal of that particular business is to educate people about sustainability and what that word actually means. I'm interested in the environment if it can be, and activities for the environment if they can be supported by the free market. So I do things like recycling, and I've always been really interested in the food supply because I myself was affected by pesticides and have been on about an 80% organic diet ever since. And so I was really inspired to educate people about their health, about the environment, about supporting small businesses and how important it is to keep your dollar in the local economy. And one of the things that our company did was put on a farmer's market in Pueblo, Colorado at the Art Center. And I was getting everything ready, and I had different rules for my privately run market than the publicly run market. So The Pueblo Regional Building had different rules for me and different permitting processes, which cost me an additional about $2,000 for the event. Then the Pueblo City County Health Department had different rules for me that actually turned away about 7 paying vendors that were coming from around the state to come to our farmers market. And then the city sales tax people had different rules, including making me go get a background check to have my farmers market. And I actually have a concealed carry, so I've already been through all of that process. But they made me pay for all of this, made me feel like a criminal, got it all done. And then we were in the market. I wrote to the city council, county commissioners, and city manager, and I outlined for them the different rules for my market, privately run, versus the publicly taxpayer subsidized markets. And I said, listen, this is really unfair. This has cost me a lot of extra money. This has made it hard for me to make money this year. And I didn't get one response from any of those people. To this day, I have not gotten a response. And at that moment, I made it my goal to make sure that these people that call themselves representatives, that we get people in there that are actually willing to listen to the people who they claim they represent. And this was my own city council, but the same can be said at the state and federal level. I'm so tired of people that are supposed to take being a representative as an honor and turning that into their own way to line their own pockets and for their own benefit. And it frustrates me. It frustrates a lot of people, but I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to show them that a young female is capable of doing something good for her community. And that they
later at another gun show, and she's like, "You're the guy that gave me those scary movies. Oh my God. I watched them and they freaked me out." I was like, Rubio supports them. So just so you know, oh no, he'll fight. And since he's gotten into office, he's just another dirtbag that, war, So he I didn't see him, going against the NDAA, which that leads me to our next topic. What do you think about the NDAA? I personally think they're just using it. I mean, it's as a fear weapon. Like, oh, we can kick the crap out of you legally now, like a bully, But right. What do you see? What are your thoughts on it, Tisha?
Well, I've written a little bit about it on our website, and I do think that they're trying to use it as a fear tactic. The beautiful thing is, I try to look at everything in a positive light as much as I can, is I think that all of this stuff coming out of the Congress and out of the White House is a sure sign that they're very concerned about the American people. And I mean that in a good way. I think that the American people are starting to rise up and be resilient and speak out and stop listening to the talking heads. And I think more and more conversations are going on in every community, in every state, about the atrocities at the federal level of government. And so this stuff that's coming out that basically denies us of any type of right guaranteed by the Constitution is just a way for them to try and make quote unquote legal whatever they want to do. And of course, they can't. They don't have that power. As Michael Badnarik always says, it really begins and ends with us. We are the enforcers of our liberty. And at the end of the day, that's probably what it's going to come down to, is us standing up for our rights. But the NDAA is a terrible piece of legislation. They leave completely open what it means or how you can interpret a belligerent act, who could be called a terrorist. It takes away all of your rights for due process. It's a very, very intimidating piece of legislation. But at the end of the day, we can stand up for ourselves, period. Why? Our rights come from our Creator, our God. And my right to life is not going to be stopped or impaired by the federal government because I'm not doing anything wrong. And more people, I think, understand this. And that's a great thing for our society. And so obviously it's something that I think needs to be repealed. But before that can happen, I think we just need people in our communities standing up for one another. We have to stand up for our fellow countrymen. And then we need to exercise county sheriffs and their power to stand up against the federal government when the federal government starts to.
Either As a team, we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen. Believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.